Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy, your host for the show today. I have a wonderful guest with me, Emily Gibson, mental health therapist. I would like everyone to welcome her in. We have some lively conversation and insight as to what it is Emily does. She's no stranger to the community in which she lives and the community in which she practices. Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate being here.
Oh, absolutely. Emily, I want to just dive right in. I feel as if every time I have a conversation with you, I'm so comfortable. You're probably one of the easiest persons or people I have the chance to speak with. And knowing your background, I guess, could be very intimidating to a few who may think that there's some judgment going on. And I never feel it. I feel so warm and invited into your presence every time I'm with you. And I want to thank you for that. And I want the audience to understand that feeling because I've been to therapy many years ago where my experience was not as warm and comfortable. And although I'm not a patient or client of yours, just being in your presence and understanding how I feel is worth me sharing with others. Your base is, although you work with males and females, your base is primarily female. And as a female, that's really important to me. Is there a way this came about? Was it choice? Was it organic? How exactly did you find this niche to work within?
Well, thank you, Tracy. That's a great question. Well, like you said, I do work with some men and have for since the beginning of my career. However, in the last few years, I found myself working with women who were really ready to do some deep dives into doing the healing work, taking a look at their patterns, their emotions, their relationships, their childhoods, and really seeing what was going on and doing the work. And so I found that meeting these women where they were in midlife, where I also have been, was incredibly rewarding and gave me just a really, a broad view of what it's like to be a woman in our society today, the way that things are structured, and being available and able and capable of working with that population. It just seemed like a natural fit. So about a year ago, when I moved out into the community from doing primarily online work during the pandemic, I kind of was restructuring my website and taking a look at my niche and where I wanted to focus. And so it was at that time that I really decided, okay, I think that this is the women in midlife is the focus. There's so many different parts of midlife that are confounding and confusing and hard and challenging. And having somebody that's gone through it, is going through it, has gone through it with them, I feel like I've just been able to really connect, and it's been incredibly rewarding. So that's kind of how that came about.
And I think that's probably the feeling that I'm getting. I think that's the energy you're projecting. I think that is what makes me feel comfortable when we are having a conversation. I understand your practice is pretty um, wide in its variety. It's all encompassing. It's mental health really does span some areas where I think people aren't really considering it to be mental health, right? So you deal with depression and anxiety, you deal with grief, you deal with self-image, and you deal with people who are going through situations in life, such as divorce. And I think that people really don't consider divorce as a mental health issue, but what it plays upon the mind. I've been there, and what it plays upon in life truly is a mind-body connection. And so, can you explain or at least discuss some of the opportunities people have when they do make that visit with you and make that connection with you?
Well, sure. Divorce is just one of my specialty areas, and you're absolutely right in talking about mind-body connection. That is part of life that is all, you're right, all encompassing and impacts every single major area of life. And so supporting women along that journey. And I know that we've talked about potentially doing divorce support group through Mind and Body Lounge or other
Mhm.
women's issues in midlife. So that is a possibility.
I just want to have the conversation. There's so many things that are I think we all just walk through life and it's all mental health, right? It's our mind chatter. It's what we're talking about when we're in the grocery store and we're trying to connect with why is it that I'm here? There's so much going on when we just came from work or we just had a disturbing conversation or we're going through a situation such as divorce or as grief. And so I guess I just really want to somewhat have the conversation as to how broad the mental health community and the mental health conversations can be and enlighten people to the fact that there's no stigma to this. Sometimes we just need someone to talk to, and it's not a family member, it's not a friend, it's not someone sitting next to us at a bar or on the plane, or, we need someone who has the capacity to absorb what's happening and give us some sound suggestions as to what and validation to what we're going through and experiencing.
Sure. And I think that having a container and a safe person within that container to help co-regulate when emotions get overwhelming, when life gets to be too much. And so that is what therapy can provide, is that safe place to really get deeply into what's really going on. I'm One of my strengths in therapy is pattern recognition. And so being able to link things together for my clients in their lives to help them understand how the patterns, which affect us all, how those patterns are playing themselves out in their lives. And I can make those connections. We can talk about what that looks like. And then we build a healing toolkit together. So that's perfect for mind and body because it's mind and body regulation tools to help manage any tough things that come up when those thoughts spin out of control, when the rumination gets overwhelming. That would be
Right.
an excellent place for those types of things to be in therapy versus sharing it with somebody in your life that may not be a safe container or may not just have the capacity or capability to handle it. Not that they don't want to or that they don't care, but they
Right.
just may not have the capability. And that is a place where a trained therapist can come in, especially with my, well over 21 years experience in the multiple domains and things that I'm trained on. So I can be
Mhm.
a really safe
And
container.
and with the patterns, don't you find people often want change or they feel like they're ready for change, yet nothing's going to change if that same mindset is present, if that same situation prevails, if the same path to make the change is taken, the same result is going to happen. And without somebody giving the sound advice as to, okay, you need to fork off into a different direction, or perhaps look at it from this perspective instead of your current perspective. And I think friends or family, I think people in our lives tend to tell us what they think we want to hear. And
Mhm.
from a professional point of view, um, I think it takes that outside source or that the educated insight and the outside disconnected person to really give that valuable um, information and path.
Sure. And, as well, a great metaphor for that would be to kind of picture that the client and the people in their lives, they're all inside of their own jar. And I'm outside the jar. And I can see the label outside the jar. And the people inside the jar can't see that label. They can't see the other things outside the jar that, with my perspective, I can. And so being able to be that third party, like you said, the neutral observer and the person that can help them shift perspective, because sometimes it's just taking a tiny shift in perspective that can really open up things in a whole new, wonderful way in life. And so
Right.
that is part of this process. And, we take a look at core beliefs. Those all get wired in when we're young. And so we take a look at how those core beliefs then influence our patterns, influence our behavior, influence our choices in ways we have no idea that is happening until we really do kind of pull it all apart. So, a
Mhm.
couple metaphors for that, you can think of this as like a rubber band ball. And to get to the center, you have to take off each rubber band individually. That's kind of part of the work, is to kind of do it in little bits. You can think of it as peeling back the layers of an onion. In both of those metaphors, the only way to get to the center is slow and steady work with somebody's
Right.
day. And the only way to get to the center in any other way is to just cut right through. And that is not what we do. We don't want to make things harder, although sometimes therapy can be initially a little challenging as these things get uncovered. The goal is then relief and on identifying these so that they can be uncovered and then changed. We can't start any change process without awareness. And so therapy is where that self-awareness can be built. That's so important.
Mhm. And I think that's a really important perspective is it's not a one and done. This
Right.
isn't something that is going to be fixed overnight or with one or two sessions. This is something that we need to work with. And, there are a lot of theories out there, 21-day challenges to change a habit or 30-day challenges. There's a reason, right? There's a reason to create new habits in order to
Oh,
form
yeah.
something new or to remove a habit. And I
Mhm.
think therapy or conversations that are valuable enough to make the change in life follow that same suit. They need to happen over and over and just like anything else. You're not going to lose 20 pounds by walking around the block for the first time today, right? I mean, it's a
Exactly.
process. And the more people understand that it's work, but it's very validating and it's life-changing, I think the more value they'll put on the conversations they may be having with you.
Sure. And while I don't want to scare anyone away because of it being a slow and steady and not a one and done thing,
Right.
people do report having relief from a lot of their symptoms and just hope and feeling as if they have a little bit of a foundation under their feet, knowing that there's a therapist established, they have a relationship with me underneath them. So even if we're not seeing massive change initially, which is kind of like New Year's resolutions, where
Sure.
that kind of change doesn't necessarily stick for very long, they do have somebody that is there. And so something that my clients will frequently see me do is use a dial type of visual when we're talking. And what this is represents is here's where we start. So that we're starting at that moment of self-awareness. Oh, this thing needs to change. And then over here is whatever that change looks like for that client. And it looks different for everybody. And so the process of change goes along in this slow and steady movement along that dial till we get to whatever that place is. And that can move and shift. And, that's not, nobody's locked in. But the thing that our society makes it seem like can happen is that collapses and that there is no, you don't have to do the work along the way, that you just I'm aware of it and I see my pattern and so I'm healed. And that's not really, that's just the start. And so
Right.
therapy is the thing that moves that dial towards the changes. And so while, there's no set length, and people do move faster or slower along the dial, depending on the things they're doing outside of therapy. That is kind of how the whole change process works. And if we want things to stick, the slow and steady way is to do it because otherwise our nervous systems, our patterns will all say no and reverse any changes that we try to make too fast.
I also think attending therapy, whether it be one-on-one or in a group setting, is also a sense of commitment and
Mhm.
accountability. So it's not as if you're the answer, you're the conduit to the answer. And if people understand that the accountability is show up, have the conversations, practice exactly what is being discussed. And
Mhm.
as you put it, moving that dial. Well, if
Yes.
this is accomplished, now the dial can move to the next grid, right? So
Mhm.
I love that, and I think that it is the proper way to really move through anything. And these conversations are, as mentioned, very life-changing. People aren't seeking help until they realize they can't do it themselves, until they realize that what they're doing isn't really working. And perhaps we're just going back to that conversation of patterns. This
Right.
pattern doesn't work. What I'm doing isn't working. I need to seek advice.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. All right. So, speaking of the groups, do you have group therapies? Do you offer anything in the way to segue into some of the more intimate conversations? Is there anything available currently?
There are no current groups running, but the divorce group is in process. So
Okay.
I'm putting out the feelers to see if what the interest level might be for that. And I do sound and nature and art therapy modalities as well. And so I do have a sound and meditation session scheduled through the Ida Rupp Library in Port Clinton, Ohio. That'll be May 15th at 3 p.m. And a partner of mine in the therapy world and I will be doing a meditation and sound bath session together. So that will be the next opportunity to catch me that is actually scheduled. And then otherwise it'll be a matter of just following me for announcements for any other options that may become available.
Okay, and that is group, correct? That's a group session at
That's
the library.
yes. And
What?
it's free of charge and open to the public. It's part of Mental Health Awareness Month for May. So they're
Okay.
highlighting a mind-body connection in a really nice way with hosting that event and hosting it.
That's absolutely fantastic. What is the criteria? What do they need to wear, bring? What is it encompassing if for anyone who is unaware of sound bath?
Sure, it's a meditative session, similar to like a yoga session where there isn't a lot of movement, and the sound will begin to calm the nervous system. And so it's reclining on a yoga mat or a blanket, or you are able to sit up and get the same benefits. Most people do lie down. So a yoga mat, a blanket, maybe a pillow, an eye covering if that's desired would also be recommended as well. It doesn't require any physical activity or any movement beyond being able to get up and off, on and off the mat. And it will run for just under an hour. And so that would be a wonderful way for anybody that is interested in a sound bath or meditation, maybe hasn't ever tried it before, aren't quite sure about it, and want to take a nice, safe, and low stakes way in. They're more than
Right,
welcome.
right. And this is where I'm going with this. Sometimes it's a big step forward to send an email, make a phone call, make an appointment, but there are segues into it. And
Mhm.
I think sometimes the conversation is just to get real with what is working for us and get real with, hey, I felt a level 3 when I went into this group therapy or the sound bath therapy, but now I'm at an 8 when I left. And so there's something to this. I think I'm going to give Emily a call and see why. What was it? What part of me resonated with the therapy I just experienced?
Mhm.
And right, I mean
Yeah.
so the sound bath is free, but
Yeah.
you do have, well, you have a lot going on. So the nature and the artwork, and these are all things that if people are following you, is it social media or how do they access that information? A website?
Sure. It's all Emily Gibson Therapy. So emilygibsontherapy.com is the website. And then Emily Gibson Therapy on Facebook and Instagram. So those would be places to follow. And any opportunities or any groups, that type of thing will, of course, be
Be posted there.
posted there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Emily, I think another deterrent besides just pulling the trigger to make the appointment or to actually reflect in the need or the beating the stigma of needing or wanting or seeking this therapy might actually fall into a category of cost or payment.
Mhm.
So if somebody has made it through all these other hurdles, there is still one hurdle left. How exactly are they going to pay for this? How exactly can this be accommodated and fit into their schedule in a reasonable way? And I understand, obviously, there's, out-of-pocket costs, but do you have any other way? Are there payment plans? Is there the insurance possibility, health um, um, associations that may be connected with this?
Sure. I wanted to be as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. So I have a wide array of options. I accept Medicaid plans in Ohio. I take Anthem and United's Medicaid plans. And then I am in network with Aetna, Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Medical Mutual, Optum, United, Paramount, traditional Medicare, and Care Source. I
Oh, wow.
do also offer out of pocket cover, or I'm sorry, out of pocket sessions where the client would just pay me directly. So we can talk
Uh,
about payment plans or payment options for that when we discuss what that might look like. And so I do handle all of the insurance billing on as a courtesy to my clients. And so typically how that works is they give me the information for their insurance plan when we start, and then each session I bill the insurance company. Insurance pays me. Whatever is not covered is client's responsibility. Typically, we do know that ahead of time what that looks like, with
okay.
where things stand with the ability to check benefits and that kind of information ahead of time. There's usually not a lot of surprises for the clients. Every once in a while, they may not have the coverage they expected. So I'd certainly encourage always checking on what that coverage looks like, whether I'm part of that plan, that kind of thing. But I do work closely with clients on that. I do understand the necessity of insurance. I need to use my insurance frequently, so I certainly want to be as accessible as possible.
Right. I think that's fantastic. And that is the last box to check. We have created an easy way to understand and to connect with you. I think there's no reason for anyone to delay or to perhaps doubt the validity of having their conversation with you and finding a better way to mental peace. And it really does affect mind body. People are
Mhm.
not sleeping well if they have too much on their mind, if they're dealing with stress and anxiety, if they're going through a period of grieving. And let's not discount the fact that life changes, such as divorce, is also a form of grief. It may be something that each party is agreeing to, but it's still a loss. It's grieving the end of something that is current in life, right? So I think that this has changed the conversation from I don't know how to move forward to I have no reason not to move forward.
Yes. And
Right.
also, as far as connectivity, I do have a Psychology Today profile. So sometimes there's a little bit of information there that may not be elsewhere. And the best ways to reach out to me are email at therapist@emilygibsontherapy.com, or I can be texted or called at 419-341-8619. And I do want to say that even when I have a waiting list, so that is out on Psychology Today when there's a wait list, I always get each client in within a reasonable amount of time, even if there's a wait list. So I don't want anybody to be deterred if they do see that. If they get on the wait list, they will get in with me. So those are a couple of other ways to connect. And I look forward to speaking with anybody who is interested and wants to know more.
Thank you, Emily. This is enlightening. It's inspiring, and as it should be. And I think it really validates what a lot of people have going on in their mind and in their emotions and in the connection that they have or the disconnection they may be feeling. So I appreciate your time with us today. I appreciate this information. And to the audience, this is just skimming the opportunities. This is just skimming the options. So please reach out to Emily, find a way to connect with her through her website, through her email, or give her a call.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is while I am primarily virtual, and this is my virtual space, I do see clients on Mondays in person at the Trinity United Methodist Church in Port Clinton, Ohio. So there is an in-person option, and then there are virtual options on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and that is for anybody in the entire state of Ohio. And that is going to be expanding soon. There is legislation out there that is going to be allowing us to offer our services across state lines. So that will be an announcement down the road as well. So at
Oh,
this time, can see local people in person or virtual, and anybody across Ohio virtual.
that's great news. And it's fantastic to actually see you in your element. So anyone who is engaging in this podcast and in this interview gets to see what they
This is
will.
what they'll see. Yes.
Yes, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. This has been eye-opening,
Thank you.
absolutely wonderful insight, information, and I feel the inspiration that I think the you project to the people that you work with, and I appreciate that so much.
Well, thank you, Tracy. This has been a fantastic opportunity, and I've appreciated our conversation. And I
Yes,
look
thank
forward to
you.
hearing from anybody after this.
A pleasure. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.